sit for us. John.
Here's Aloisi.
David, how are the plans progressing for the new season?
Yeah, slowly but surely we're putting the team together, and pretty excited. 2 or 3 more additions to make, but I've got 19 players signed up, and the next couple of weeks hopefully they'll be decided on who they'll be.
Okay, so there's 19 players. Have all been announced?
Not all been announced. There's 1 or 2 that have yet to be announced, but they're in the process, and they've actually agreed to come, but they haven't signed. So It's a situation where we don't want to release anything until they've actually signed.
Will there be a marquee player this year?
Well, we're looking at that. There's a couple of options. I think rather than have one outstanding marquee player, what I've tried to do is blend it over the team where we have 2 or 3 really good players in different positions. I think it's fraught with danger if you have one really big marquee player. But it's still an option. We'll look at it, and if that comes available within the right price range, we'll do it.
Yeah. So, again, are you going to use the entire salary cap?
Yeah, the good thing is with the owners, they've addressed the situation from last year. They've looked at it and said that, look, within the salary cap, if we can get the team that we want, then go for it. You can get to spend the full amount with the supplementary ASAs, they're called. Now that's what could include a marquee. It might not. If I, going about being pretty tight with money, with my background of being a bit of Scottish, so if I can save the owners some money and get some quality players, I'll do that, and it's been good. So I think there's a good feeling at the club, but slowly but surely we're putting the team together, and yeah, I'm not going to be singing from the hilltops. I just want to go about my business quietly and put a good solid team together that will compete at the highest level.
Who would you consider at this stage, I know you'd probably say 19 of them, but who would you consider to be your really main signings at this stage? The ones that really are stand out and going to attract the fans?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think there's a couple. Obviously, we've had players there in the past. I mean, you've got Jamie Hamill coming back, who's been the top scorer for the last year. Jamie's a committed player, so he's another signing for us, which is good because he re-signed for the club for 2 years. That's right. We've got big Frank Jurek, who probably not many people remember, but he won the National League back in the old 1990s, and that's when Mark Viduka was there over the Melbourne side. He's been in Germany for 11 years. Great talent and great acquisition for the club, and it just gives us 3 really good keepers, so we have depth in that area now, which I think we've sort of lacked in a little bit of recent years. When we look up front, we've got Eugene Daddy, who I think some of them saw at training, technically very good. Eugene's not going to burn past people with his pace, but we don't expect him. We expect him to hold the ball, bring other people into the game, and someone like Nikita can learn off him and make runs off him. So he's another good acquisition for us. There's a boy called Adrian Trinidad, who's Argentinian, who's technically very good, and I'm looking forward to seeing him get fit and blend into our side, and he's an exciting player. He'll score goals for us as well. So, they're the 3. And then you've got David Tarker, who's going to come back in, who's missed all last season, unfortunately, and he's like a new signing for us because he's coming back looking fresh and looking eager and hungry, and he'll be another great compliment to the side this year. So when you look at that, there's a spread. There's another couple of players that we're looking at bringing in that adds a bit of depth and stability, and I think we'll have a solid team.
And Nikita is back as well, I take it, next season?
Yeah, again, when you look at the young boys, Nikita had an outstanding year last year. At the second half of the year, he scored lots of goals. He's only matured and grown in stature, so he's going to be a big feature this year in our team. And you've got young Jimmy Downey, who, when he gets the ball, everyone gets out the seat because he's an exciting player. And, again, he's only matured and going to add an asset to the side as well. On the top of that, you've got Nicola Topasanla, who's played for the Socceroos, and again, he's matured, become more of a player, and again, he's our best player last year, and hopefully this year will be even better again.
Actually, when you name them out like that, it is quite an interesting lineup, isn't it, and quite a reasonable lineup.
Yeah, well, when you look at that, a lot of people said they might think that Perth Glory, here we go, boring again, but when you state that, when you look at the young boys that we had were exciting. They've matured a little bit more now. They've had a bit of taste of success last year towards the end of last season. We've implemented some other players coming into the side that are going to be giving it quality that we didn't have. And we've got places all over the park that people are competing for places, and that's what I want, so that I can expect players to have a bad game, But if you had 2 bad games, well, you'd be out the side. And that's where we need competition for places all over the park, from the front to the back, and I think we're going to have that.
Have you got in your mind a starting 11, shall we say, even at this early stage?
Not so much. There's 1 or 2 more players I'm looking to sign, and depending on how they go with the signings. But again, we've got a bit of depth there, and I will make a couple of more signings. And if I get them, then it will just add to the depth and the strength of the side. And there's 1 or 2 good players that I'm looking at signing again to the squad from the players I've already mentioned. So if you add 2 more quality players to that group and a couple of young, talented players, I think we're going to look like a good side this year.
Yeah, you've signed Andrej Jukic, haven't you, from Perth?
Well, I'm looking at Andrej. He's possibly still for the youth team. And again, I'm just trying to manage the money situation well, because there's a budget. While he's still available for the youth team, he might be signed for the youth team, and we can maybe look at still implementing him into the first team when he gets a chance. But again, he might earn a contract depending on the players I'm chasing now overseas.
Yeah. And how many more foreign spots or overseas spots have we got left?
Well, I've got 1 foreign spot left, and in that I'm looking to implement someone from overseas in there. But I'm looking to bring another player in from overseas who's Australian as well, who would come in. So again, someone experienced in a role that we sort of have lacked over the last couple of years. Without any names.
I'm just trying to think of which role.
Yeah, well, in midfield. Yeah.
Okay. So in other words, a creative midfielder to replace the likes of Simon, who really wasn't a midfielder as such. I'm
looking at a creative midfielder plus a sort of hard-working midfielder to complement each other, and they're the 2 sort of roles I'm looking at, as well as 1 or 2 other little positions to fill in.
Were you disappointed to lose Simon, or was that really on the cards all the way along?
No, look, I think when I took over, I think the best thing is I think Simon had to freshen himself up. He'd been at the club 3 or 4 years, obviously as a talented player, but I think it was best he moved on for himself and the club.
You have a policy though, haven't you, David, that unless they want to play for Glory, they're not going to play?
Yeah, well look, first and foremost, the player has to respect the club that give them the wages, and they have to respect their fellow teammate and perform for themselves. And I demand respect on the park, and we demand that they work hard for each other. And rather than have a team of champions, the old cliche is I'd rather have everyone working for each other, and we all benefit. If the players win, they win. I win as a coach, and the club wins, and we'll get Perth Glory back in the top 4 where we belong.
And are we going to see any more bottle kicking incidents, which named you the title David Mitchell Football Hooligan?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but that was just sheer frustration, I think maybe I'll fill it up with water next time, and I won't kick it so far, so it won't go into the park, so it'll be all right.
Okay, and realistically now, let's call a spade, as the saying goes. Where do you expect Perth Glory to finish at the end of the, shall we call it, the home and away series?
Well, expect. That's a big word. I want to be in the top 4 without a doubt. I want to be in the top 2 without a doubt. But to get in the top 4 is an achievement from where we've been at, and once we're in the top 4, you can make a challenge for the championship. So the barrier is the top 4, but I personally would like to get in the top 2. So and again, it will just be have a good solid performance throughout the season and be kept competitive. And if we get in the top 4, then we've got a chance to win it.
Would Asian football be the dream, really, in 1 year's time?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we're the closest to Asia, so I think if we could get in the top 4, compete, get into Asia from there, then it's just, again, cementing Perth Glory back as a force.
What do you think of the situation whereby, like, we're out of season, and, like, for instance, Adelaide at the moment, they really are going to struggle, I think, in the quarterfinals, not being in season?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's unfortunate, but, the coaching staff at the club, and the club would have looked at that, and they would have had situations where they'll still be ticking over. So it's great that they've qualified for Australian football, and that we're into Asia. So I'm looking forward to them doing well. And yeah, it's going to be tough. The further you get in the tournament, the tougher you get. And don't forget, we have a salary budget of a lot less money than the Asians do. So we're trying to work with a $2.5 million budget. They have a $10 million US budget. So it's not a fair playing field. But the characteristics of Australian players and the way we put the sides together, it's good that we can compete at that level.